The cruel laughter at Riverside Park made my stomach tighten as I pushed my daughter on the swing. It wasn't the kind of laughter you want to hear. It was cutting, malicious, the kind that reminded me of the worst moments of my life. And when I looked to see where it was coming from, my blood ran cold. A kid about 13 years old was holding a little girl by the wrist, waving what looked like a torn drawing notebook over her head. I had no idea this moment would pull me into a fight far bigger than I imagined. If you're tired of the same old content and want stories that actually matter, please hit that subscribe button right now. Here you'll find stories completely different from what most people are doing. Stories with purpose, faith, and real triumph over adversity. Because this story will show you how a single moment of courage can change not just one life, but an entire community. My name is Jake, and 8 years ago, I walked out of Danbury Federal Prison after serving 10 years for bank robbery. 10 years of my life lost. 10 years away from my daughter, Isabella. When I got out, I had one certainty. I would never again be the angry, impulsive man who had destroyed everything around me. Now I had my small auto repair shop in Millbrook, a quiet town in rural Connecticut. Isabella came to visit me on weekends, and I was trying, day after day, to be the father she deserved. I was trying to figure out who I really was when I wasn't angry at the whole world. That October Sunday started like any other. Isabella had asked to go to the park, and I could never deny those bright little eyes anything. Riverside Park was our special place, far enough from downtown to have peace, close enough for me to feel safe. I didn't know peace was about to be the last thing I'd find there. "Hiya, Daddy," Isabella yelled from the swing, but my attention was already elsewhere. Two identical little girls, couldn't have been more than 8 years old, were cornered against the fence near the monkey bars. The smell of dry autumn leaves was in the air, but there was something heavier in the atmosphere. Tension, fear. "Please give it back." The smaller girl was crying now, trying to reach for the notebook. "It's for my mom." The kid, Tyler, I found out later, laughed cruelly. "Maybe your mom should buy you better paper. This stuff looks like trash anyway." I felt that familiar heat rising in my chest. The same heat that used to get me into trouble. But this time it was different. It wasn't anger looking for a target. It was something deeper. It was an inner voice whispering, "Some children need protection, and you have the power to give that to them." "Daddy, why is that boy being mean?" Isabella had noticed too. That's when I knew I couldn't just watch. Some battles choose you. "Stay here, princess. Don't leave that swing." My work boots crunched on the dry leaves as I walked over. "Hey," my voice came out rougher than I intended. "Old habits. How about you give back the notebook and find something else to do?" Tyler turned around, sizing me up with that arrogant look I knew well. I could see his father in him. That posture of someone who's never heard the word no. "Who do you think you are?" Someone who thinks picking on little girls makes you look pretty small. I kept my voice controlled, but let a hint of authority show through. Prison taught me when to push and when to back down. The kid hesitated. For a second, I thought he might give in. My heart was pounding. I could hear my own blood rushing in my ears, like the whole world had gone silent, waiting to see what would happen next. Then his chin lifted in defiance. "My dad is Richard Blackstone. He practically owns this town. He got the bank, the construction companies, probably owns the stinking garage where you work too." I almost smiled. The kid had no idea he was talking to someone who used to rob banks, not bow down to them. But I knew this wasn't just about a notebook anymore. That's when a woman's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Tyler Blackstone, what did I tell you about this behavior?" A woman in a navy blue suit was walking across the playground. Even from a distance, I could see the fire in her eyes. This had to be the twins' mother. The kid actually took a step back. "They started it," Aunt said. "I don't care what your mother said. Give back their notebook." Now, Tyler threw the crumpled notebook at the smaller twins' feet and stomped off toward the basketball court. The woman knelt down, hugging both girls. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "He tore Sophie's drawings, Mommy," one of them said. "The one she made for you." The quiet one, Sophie, picked up her notebook with trembling hands. Half the pages were torn, her carefully drawn animals scattered among the dry leaves. That's when something inside me shifted. It felt like a gentle light wrapped around me, warming even the coldest parts inside. In that moment, There was no fear, only a peace so deep it was impossible to explain. I knelt down and started gathering the torn pages. "These are really good," I said to Sophie, smoothing out a drawing of a fox. "My daughter loves to draw too. She would think these are incredible." Sophie looked at me with wide eyes. "Really? Of course. Nobody has the right to treat your art like trash." "Thank you," the woman said finally. "I'm Sarah. These are Sophie and Emma. Jake, and that's Isabella over there, waiting very patiently for me to come back." Sarah's smile was cautious but genuine. "Thank you for stepping in. Most people would have just watched." But our conversation was interrupted by the sound of a powerful engine. A black BMW pulled up to the curb, and an expensive suited man got out, tall, gray-haired, with that confidence that comes from never hearing no. "Richard Blackstone, Tyler's father. Is there a problem here?" His voice was silk over steel. Sarah stood up, instinctively positioning herself between her daughters and the man. "Your son was bullying my girls, Richard. Again." Richard's eyes slid over her and settled on me. I felt him cataloging everything. The work clothes, the partially visible tattoos, the way I carried myself. "And who might you be?" "Someone who doesn't like seeing kids being bullied." Richard smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "You know, friend, sometimes it's better to mind your own business, especially when you don't understand all the dynamics at play." The threat was subtle but clear. I'd heard many like it over the years. The dynamics seemed pretty clear to me. Big kid bullying little kids. Simple math. Richard's smile widened dangerously. "Math, right?" As the BMW drove away, Sarah turned to me. "You just made an enemy you really don't want to have. Wouldn't be the first. Richard doesn't just own businesses, Jake. He owns people. When someone crosses him, they usually regret it." I looked at Isabella, still waiting patiently on the swing, then at the twins. Some things are worth the risk. I didn't know how soon I'd find out what that risk really meant. On Monday, I found out Sarah was right. Mrs. Martinez, who'd been bringing her old Honda to my shop for 3 years, called to cancel. "Sorry, Jake, but I've decided to take my car somewhere else." "Did I do something wrong on the last repair?" Long pause. "No, you did good work. I just think it's time for a change." By noon, 2 more clients had canceled. By afternoon, my biggest contract, maintenance for Thompson Construction's fleet, was gone. I was closing up the shop when Sarah's silver SUV pulled into the lot. She got out carrying a coffee cup and a paper bag. "Thought you might need this," she said. The coffee was expensive, the kind from that fancy downtown cafe, not the gas station swill I was used to. And the sandwich. When was the last time someone brought me food just because? 3 of my clients canceled their accounts today, Sarah said. "Richard works fast. Why are you here? You could have stayed away." Sarah was quiet, looking around my shop. "Because yesterday, when you knelt down to help Sophie gather her drawings, you looked at her like she mattered. Not like she was a problem to solve. Like she was a person worthy of protection." She paused. "My ex-husband used to tell the girls they were too loud, too messy. You've known them for 5 minutes, and you already see them better than their own father ever did. I have a daughter too. If someone was hurting her..." "And who are you really, Jake?" It was a question I've been asking myself for 8 years. Still figuring that out. Sarah smiled, a real smile this time. "Well, while you're figuring it out, you should know Richard isn't finished. This is just the beginning." And I was starting to realize she wasn't exaggerating. Sarah was right. Tuesday brought a visit from the city inspector. Wednesday, my insurance company called about safety concerns. Thursday night, a black sedan sat across the street for 20 minutes. That's when Sarah came back, this time with a manila folder. "I've been doing some research," she said. "Richard's construction company has been winning city contracts for 5 straight years, always with bids slightly lower than the competition." I opened the folder. Bank statements, building permits, meeting minutes. "You think he's bribing officials?" $3 million moved to offshore accounts the same week his company won the hospital renovation contract. I studied the papers. In prison, you learn to recognize patterns. This is money laundering. Classic scheme. Sarah stared at me. "How do you know so much about this?" The moment of truth had arrived. Because I spent 10 years in federal prison, and you learn things there. I waited for her to run. Instead, she leaned forward. What else did you learn? That men like Richard only respect one thing, getting caught. So how do we make him vulnerable? Though we hit me hard. When was the last time someone said we? It was the first time in years I felt like I wasn't fighting alone. Getting the evidence took 3 weeks. Sarah used her connections in the banking sector. I used mine, ex-cons who now work construction, bartenders who heard too much. Tommy Rodriguez, who'd done time with me, worked security at the Continental Hotel. He told me about Richard's weekly meetings in the penthouse suite. The dangerous part was getting recordings. We had a small recorder that Tommy planted before a meeting. The night we went to retrieve it, everything went wrong. Sarah and I were in the hotel garage when 2 men in suits approached. I recognized one of them, Carlos Morales, Richard's head of security. Mr. Blackstone would like to talk, Carlos said. Tell Mr. Blackstone we're busy. Carlos smiled. That wasn't a request. In prison, you develop an instinct for when talk turns to violence. Sarah, when I say run, you run to the stairs. I'm not leaving you. Yes, you are. Your girls need their mother. Carlos was reaching inside his jacket when garage lights flooded on and a voice echoed. Police. Hands where I can see them. 3 squad cars surrounded us. Detective Reynolds, who'd been monitoring Richard for months, had gotten the recording we needed. Richard's voice, clear as day, discussing bribes with Councilman Parker, she said. Just like that, the tables had turned. 2 weeks later, Richard Blackstone was in the headlines. Local businessman arrested in corruption scheme. 6 months have passed since that day at the park. Richard got 15 years in federal prison, an irony of fate that made me smile. His construction company went bankrupt, his assets were seized. My shop is busier than ever. People trust me with their cars, and more importantly, they trust me with their problems. Last Sunday, I took Isabella to the same park where it all began. She was on a monkey bars when I spotted a familiar scene, a bigger kid picking on a smaller one. This time, I wasn't the only one who noticed. Hey, Isabella yelled, jumping down from the bars. Leave him alone. Says who? The bigger kid asked. Says me and my dad, Isabella replied. My dad says truly strong people protect little people. The kid backed down, mumbled an apology, and walked away. I felt a hand slip into mine. Sarah had arrived with the twins. Good job, Isabella, Sarah said. Your dad taught you well. He taught me that being strong means helping people who need help. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Jake, are you and Mommy going to get married? Emma, Sophie whispered. You can't just ask that. Sarah blushed, but didn't let go of my hand. Well, that's something adults have to talk about. But I can say I love our family. As I watched our 3 daughters playing together, Sarah leaned against my shoulder. Any regrets? I thought seriously. 10 years lost. The shame. The struggle. About the past? No. Every mistake led me to that moment in the park. Led me to discover who I really want to be. And who's that? Someone who shows up when it matters. Someone who uses their second chance to make sure others get there first. The afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the playground. In a few minutes, we'd head home for dinner, our Sunday tradition. Isabella would show Sophie and Emma her drawings. The twins would help me make pancakes, and Sarah would settle into the kitchen chair with a cup of coffee and a smile that told me I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Sometimes the biggest transformations start with the smallest acts of courage. Sometimes protecting someone who can't protect themselves is exactly the purpose we've been looking for. And for me, that purpose had finally come home. If this story inspired you, please hit like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments a time when faith or courage made all the difference in your life. I read every single one. Thank you for listening. God bless you.